Welcome to the Working Genius podcast, where we discuss anything and everything related to the 6 types of working genius and how it impacts your work and your life. I'm Pat Lencioni, your host, joined by a special crew today. We got Beau Johnson. How you doing, Beau?
Hey, Pat. Excited to be here.
Julie Dobbins, who knows a lot about working genius. How you doing today, Julie?
Doing great.
That's good. And Matt Lencioni, you're going to be on mic with us today. How you doing, Matt?
Good.
Good. All right. Very nice. Very nice. I've got Karen in studio here and Tracy also keeping us on track and some guests, some visitors watching us today. So, Beau, what is the topic?
Today is going to be really fun. Today we're talking about jobs, careers, and hiring Q&A.
That's right. We just did a podcast. A big webinar.
Yeah.
Right?
We did an event for thousands of people. A bunch of you got to watch. It was so fun. We dove into this topic that there's been so many questions about and that we love talking about jobs, careers, and hiring. And a lot of that content was related to Working Genius. And we got so many questions. We said, let's do a podcast where we go through a bunch of those questions, all related to this really, really important topic. And Pat, folks have heard you talk about your love for this topic, but tell us again, what is it about this that feels in particular aligned with who you are?
I think that I've always had a heart for people that were in jobs that they didn't like. And I could see the pain that it caused them and their families and others. And I just thought, wow, if there's a way that we could help people find dignity, joy, and fulfillment in their work, we could change the world. I thought about that when I was a kid even, which is kind of weird. So now we get to actually address that. And then when Working Genius came about, I feel like I'm finally getting to live in one of the many areas of passion that I have in my life.
So fun. And Julie was here. She was really instrumental in making this event happen. And for any of you who've been through certification, Julie was so instrumental in certification's growth and how polished and exceptional that experience is. So Julie knows so much about Working Genius. We're like, get on mic. We want to hear your insights about this. So let's dive into some questions. Should we do that?
Let's do it.
Okay, this is a really fun question. Pat, let's start with you. How much time should we spend in our Working Genius?
Right. And this is one of those things, obviously there's no specific right answer. It's really hard to know. But I thought about it, like if somebody forced me to come up with a number, and it made sense when I thought about it, I think that if we can spend at least half our time in our jobs utilizing our geniuses, so let's call it 51%. That's like, if you can go to work and say, hey, more often than not, I get to use my geniuses. That's pretty good. But then the other question isn't just about genius. It's about your working frustrations, the two things that deprive you of joy and energy. And I think we should spend no more than 20%. You know, I think if you're thinking at 1 out of 5 hours in my job, I have to do that. I can do that. Yeah. But if it gets more than that, that's pretty hard. So I guess the minimum should be I spend 51% of my time in my genius. I spend 19% of my time in my frustration, which leaves an extra 28% in my competencies. And I think that's a job that you could do and feel really good about. Now, some of us, we're not there yet, but if we're moving in that direction, that's great. But I think if we're spending a quarter or a third of our time in our jobs and our frustrations, it's probably something that's going to lead to pain and burnout.
Yeah, I like that kind of gut check every few weeks, asking the team or asking yourself, hey, are you spending about half of your time at least in your Working Genius? And just do a quick check-in on that. I love that answer. It's not quantitative, right? Yeah. We're not saying we should be tracking our hours and all that. It's a gut thing.
Yeah, just kind of a personal audit on, looking back at your week or your days and just doing that quick audit of, where am I getting to spend my time and how am I feeling, right? Where is my energy? Where is my fulfillment?
And Matt, you talked about going into the T cave. You've talked about that when you have to do tenacity work, which is one of your frustrations. And so we all have to do that. There's parts of our jobs, but if you were going into the T cave 35% of your time, you might have to say, is this really the right use of my time? And am I really doing the most for the company that I could do, right?
Yeah.
What percentage of your time do you think you're spending in tenacity, Matt?
15 maybe.
Okay.
Cool.
So that's doable. Julie, what are your working frustrations?
My working frustrations are W and I, wonder and invention.
Okay.
My competencies probably are not relevant. My working geniuses are discernment and tenacity. So I get to spend a lot of time there, which is wonderful.
Right. And we don't make you go sit in a room and come up with something new every day all by yourself,
Thankfully, no.
your trash would be my treasure.
Exactly.
Yeah, Beau.
Fun. Okay, let's keep moving here. Julie, love your insights on this question. Somebody sent in, how do we get management to leverage our working geniuses instead of just knowing them?
Yeah, I think, as we have these conversations of trying to, like Pat said, lean more into our area of genius as we work, it's important to still understand, what is the win for your team and what's the direction that your organization is going, and figure out how can you align what you can really contribute with your geniuses towards that goal. So that way you're getting to contribute in an area that you enjoy and love that's also really beneficial for the team. And so, part of that is just understanding, what's the dynamic, what's the need, and how can you be a part of that? And then also understanding your leader. So being curious as, you kind of figure out what are their areas of genius or what are their frustrations, and how can I, whether it's complementing those things or filling gaps with my areas of genius, come alongside and be a part of that. So sometimes that is a vulnerable conversation that you'll have with your team or with your leader to say, hey, this is what I really love to do, but leaning into that's going to be important.
Really good. And it sounds like you're talking about the idea of managing up, of saying, okay, I'm going to take responsibility to help keep this in front of my leader. What I might also do is print out your team map and bring it to a meeting that you're leading and say, hey, we're going to have this conversation. Here's the elevation of the conversation, or here's where we're at in the project, and start showing the power of the tool. And this model will help the people around you be able to take it and embrace it a little bit more.
Beau, before we go on though, I think that's the beauty of this. Like if you're a manager listening to this, if you influence people at all in their work, what a gift. If in a purely kind and virtuous way, going and helping somebody use their genius at work more is like a gift beyond imagine. They're going to love coming to work. They're going to go home better. They're going to treat their family better. They're going to feel better about what they do. But it's also self-interested. That's the beauty of this. Even if you're just a pragmatist, they are going to contribute so much more to the team. And so you are going to do better. Now, I hope we'll do it for the first reason. But the beauty of this is even if that's not your inclination or if that's hard for you to do right now, it is the best thing for what you're trying to accomplish. And so we definitely have to do that as leaders.
And that's where I love that, we always talk about working genius as a productivity tool. And so when we understand how we're all wired differently, we understand how we can work together and be more productive. And that's going to be a win for everybody.
You know what's funny, Beau? You asked me about my motivation for this and my passion in life. I actually think I am even more motivated by the individual benefits. I think when I was a kid, I felt bad for people that I knew. I remember working in a restaurant and I loved the guys that washed the dishes and that worked in the kitchen. And I thought, oh my gosh, these poor guys, I get to go back to college after the summer's over, and they do this every single day. I'm sure now some of them were happy, but some of them clearly felt like they had no choice. I didn't know what was going on, but now I want every person to figure this out so they can find the right job. And it doesn't have to be a sexy job in a high rise in New York City making millions of dollars, which doesn't sound all that interesting anyway. But so many people get stuck in a job and they never actually ask themselves, is this what God meant me to do? And so anyway, I think that's why I'm more even excited than I am about the productivity. Although the productivity is just a great bonus to this.
That's so good. Okay, we got a bunch of questions related to how do I advocate for myself? Then some of that is internal, which Julie just addressed a little bit. Some of that is external. So I'm going to ask this question. I think it'd be fun, Matt, to hear your response to this of how you would do this for yourself. The question is, I'm looking to make a career change and find a new job. How do I market my geniuses when the world is so focused on experience? So let me unpack that a little bit more. If you're going and you're looking for a job, Matt, how would you talk about your geniuses to a potential employer to be able to kind of advocate for yourself and help them see what you would contribute?
I would say that, first of all, you're trying to find a role that fits it. So ideally, the role that you're looking for is already a fit for your geniuses. So basically, you're just trying to match it. And then always you're just focusing on the tasks, which is kind of the answer to a lot of the questions that we talked about on the event and that probably we'll talk about today. But just drilling down on like, these are the things that I like to do. These are the things that it looks like you're going to be asking of me. I think I would love this role. Like this actually looks like something that would feed me and something that I'd be good at. And I mean, in terms of selling yourself, it's like you could talk about things that you've done in the past that you didn't enjoy and that weren't joyful for you and why you like things like the role that you're looking for so much more. And obviously it's a bonus in this sense if you have industry experience and have done a similar position in the past or something like that. But the answer, simply put, it's focus on the tasks.
And here's the thing I want to say is, it is not a needy or selfish thing to advocate for your working genius. It is not. And it's like the contrapositive of what I said before. It's like, if a manager isn't interested in you as a person, they should at least understand pragmatically. Well, even if you don't feel comfortable advocating for yourself and saying, hey, I deserve to do what I meant to do, which I believe is true, advocate for what you can do for the organization. And advocate for your manager and go to them and say, I could help you bet more. Your team, your work, your career would be better if I could contribute to that more. So it should never be seen as selfish or needy to advocate for yourself. But in this case, even if it's hard, just know you would actually be doing a favor to your department, your team, and your manager. So advocate for your working genius. It's a win-win.
I love it. Julie, anything that you would say as a DT, if you're coming into a role, how would you describe what it is that you do to be able to come to a manager, a potential future employer, and say, somebody with discernment and tenacity, here's the value that I would bring to that team?
Well, I'm pretty literal. I think sometimes tenacity people, we can be pretty literal, pretty straight to the point. So, really looking back at what are the things that I enjoyed and trying to find language to describe those. I also don't have invention as a genius, so coming up with new language is hard for me. So if you're in that position, go back to the report, or we have a tool called Reviewing Your Results. It's got language around, what does it look like to contribute with wonder on a team? So it kind of gives language and something a little bit more tangible to what is that actually, how does that play out? What does that task look like? And so we've got those for each of the geniuses. So that's actually something I would do. That's
a great idea.
Go to those.
I love that awareness, Julie, about your lack of invention, and then a really easy strategy. People were asking, how do I fit this into a resume? How do I add working genius there? Go borrow some of the language that Pat has written about each genius and put it in there. Here's something that I do to contribute to the team.
Exactly.
One of the things that occurs to me as we're talking here is that having a structure for this, having the 6 geniuses, allows a person to talk about what they're not good at without feeling like they have a character flaw.
Yeah.
And whenever there's a good tool for something like this, to be able to say, oh, there's a description of this, rather than me saying I'm weak or I'm flawed, we get to say, no, I just don't have that. And it gives us the courage to kind of celebrate who we are authentically,
Yeah.
And so it goes away from saying I'm lazy to saying I struggle to finish, and I work on that, but that's never going to be my strength. And so if that is the thing you need most, then it's probably not a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've done a few questions around being a job seeker or looking for your next job. Let's do some questions about interviewing and hiring. And I thought this was a really interesting question. Pat, I'd love to hear your thought about it. It's about hourly work. And this person said, I hire mostly hourly jobs, $10 an hour jobs, and most people need work. I have a hard time applying these principles to people who work hourly, to those hires. Can you help me?
I think and it's funny because when you first say that, I think, oh yeah, maybe it doesn't apply to that, but it totally does. I mean, if I have 6 kids working in a Chick-fil-A or a In-N-Out burger or a fast food place, they're going to go about those jobs differently. And even a job that's fairly well defined, there's going to be one kid at the window who loves interacting with the customer in the drive-through and making them and engaging with them and encouraging and all that stuff. There's going to be some other kid who's taking orders out there who loves just getting it done and quick. I'm processing it. And knowing that they're going to show up even doing the same jobs a little differently is going to allow you, 1, to affirm them in what they're great at, 2, to coach them without guilt around what they're not great at, which might need to be done. And even then, put them in the right position that's going to make that 6-hour shift making $15 an hour, which is probably what minimum wage is out here now. I don't know, but different places it's different. But even then, that job is going to be that much more fulfilling.
And, we say every job is a 6-letter job. So there's not one type of work or one area of genius that's better than others. And so the clarity of just knowing, hey, we have mostly ET roles or GT roles, right? We need galvanizers and people who love tenacity. Even that's a great thing for you to understand as a hiring manager or as you're looking for people, because you can be more clear and more direct about the type of job that it is and then who you can bring into that role.
Yeah. And I was thinking too, even if you can't actually make a positional change, like even if as an employee or a manager, we get a lot of comments that are like, well, I have this job and I can't switch it right now. And it is what it is. And that's, I can't make any changes, or managers saying, well, I can't move these people around. Even without being able to like fundamentally change a position or move someone into their genius, knowing the language and being able to lean on others and being able to be aware of what genius you're working in at any given time. And so you can be intentional about like how you spend your energy and where you're at and how you work with others. Even if you can't make any changes to your actual position, or if a manager can't move people and shuffle people around, it still makes a big difference on fulfillment in the job.
Yeah. And just the self-awareness alone gives you, because remember, it's about reducing guilt and judgment. And even like if I'm in a summer job and I'm struggling at part of it, and I know it's like, yeah, I got to do this for 3 months. I need a summer job. Like I was a bank teller. There was so much about being a bank teller that I was going to be miserable about, but at least having an explanation for it would probably take the guilt away and allow me to get a slightly better at it without feeling like I'm such a loser. I can't do this very well. So
Yep.
Definitely.
There's a guy in our town named Chris who runs a coffee shop. And the reason he runs a coffee shop is he says, I want to be the person that gives somebody their first job. And I want to have their first job be a great job. And I think
that's awesome.
This might sound sort of pie in the sky, but I just love the idea of people who are employing hourly workers, in particular young people, teenagers, to say, man, what if you could give them the insight about where they will get joy and fulfillment in their work for the next several decades? So you might, if you have hourly employees, man, what a great gift to be able to give them to help them know more about who they are and not have to wait years to discover that. They could discover that right now.
That's wild.
Okay, another fun question, Pat. What's the first question that you should ask a job candidate?
In an interview?
Yeah, I think that's what they mean, is when you're interviewing somebody, what's the first question you should ask them?
I'd probably start with like, what's your name? I probably want to make sure I had their name down. I think you mean a little more nuanced than that. Well, what would I say? I don't know that I would do this right out of the gate, but I want to know if they know themselves. So, and I actually do like to know, like, tell me what you don't like. Tell me what you're okay with not being good at. And so the question, what's your weakness? Which I know we talked about on our webinar about that people say, oh, I work too hard and I care too much and all that stuff. The most important question I have is I really want to know that you understand yourself, and tell me something about yourself that's a weakness that you wish you didn't have, but you recognize is true. So I'm always looking for authenticity. But is that the first question I would ask? I probably want to give them the opportunity to frame it. So I probably just said, I want to know who you are. And I don't want to be too like give them yes or no answers. I want to figure out whether they understand themselves.
Yeah, the most important question is different than the first question, and leading with that isn't always going to lead to a great conversation. But when you allow somebody the opportunity to be vulnerable and humble, you really learn something about them.
Yeah. I agree. I love the talking about interviewing. If somebody, I've been places before, like at a coffee shop or a restaurant, when I can tell somebody's being interviewed, I like to listen. And I want to think, and I always want to go over and go, oh, talk about this, or ask them this, or coach them through it,
Do you feel similar when you're watching somebody who's obviously on a first date? Because I think that's delightful to get to see. You're like, I bet that this is their first date.
Yeah.
Delightful. Oh, I always feel I'm so nervous for them. It makes me feel I'm like, oh gosh, hope that goes well.
Oh yeah, and definitely feeling like, I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore.
I always look at the guy and I think, oh, he has terrible gas. Because, when you go on a date and you're all nervous and you drop the girl off and then you let it all go.
I'm kind of pulling an audible. Do you guys have a couple best practices? And we talked yesterday about interviewing, about how
on first dates?
No.
I mean,
best practices for interviewing. We could do a podcast on best practices for first dates another time. But we talked yesterday about how so many people are still doing just the same interviews they've always done. And to even think outside the box or do it a different way, what are some of those things, whether it's using Working Genius or best questions that you do?
Well, I think there's two ways to answer that, Julie, which is interesting. One is like understanding the working genius of the person and the job and their working frustrations and matching them up that way. But the other question is it authentic? And so I think what we often say is interview people in non-traditional ways, because unfortunately people have learned to practice doing traditional interviews. So they know how to go in and say things and answer questions about their resume. So get them out of the office or get them in a different setting or get more people around them and do things that are going to put them in a position to act authentically. I like to take them shopping or something like that. I've not been as good about that lately, but I think that getting them out of the office into an authentic environment and see how they're going to deal with something is pretty good. I love the story about the CEO of the company that would take people to breakfast and then he'd get there early and he'd actually ask the server to bring them the wrong order because he wanted to see, like, do they say anything? Are they kind? But do they speak up and how they do it? And so I think that any way you can see the true person is good.
I love that insight. The other thing that I've been thinking about in interviewing is knowing your own, as the interviewer, your own geniuses matters so much. So example for me, I'm an inventor galvanizer, which means I'm double disruptive. And it means I really am prone to galvanizing somebody into a job that they're actually interviewing for. Like, it doesn't take much at all for me to be wooing them into the role instead of discerning if this is the right thing for them. Does that make sense? And I think that any genius pairing would have, if you know yourself and you know what you're most likely to be able to, how you're likely to show up.
Yeah, as a DT, as an interviewer, I am most likely to really move towards, is this the best person, and get into tactics of asking the questions, describing the role, as opposed to sometimes casting vision, making sure we've covered the big picture, or even given an opportunity to wonder about things, because I don't gravitate towards that in a conversation.
Karen just wrote me a note that I think is interesting. She says, is it important for an interviewer to have discernment? And I think that can be helpful, definitely. Definitely it can be helpful. But what's most important is that you know what you're looking for and that you're authentically getting information. And there needs to be some D in that process, because it can't be like, I asked 4 questions, they use the word we instead of I. That means they're a team player. It's more of an art than a science. And maybe a D might be more comfortable with that art, but I'll take clear expectations and knowing what you're looking for, regardless of what your working genius is. If you're interviewing people, it's more important that you know what you're looking for and you find a way to get people to be authentic. And so more than your working genius, I think that's the case.
Fun. Hey, this has been a great conversation. We got through a lot of questions. We could probably do another hour like this, but I'm looking at one of the comments we got, and there was a question submitted that said, is there a break for lunch? And so I think we should probably break for lunch.
And let everyone else do the same.
Yeah. Thanks so much for doing this event, Pat. It was a blast having this conversation. Yeah. We're going to do future at the whiteboard events that folks can look forward to.
It's been fun having you guys on the podcast today. And we want to just thank all of our listeners who are so interested in Working Genius. And we love talking to you, interacting with you, hearing from you, and putting things out that can be helpful. So thanks, everybody. And we'll talk to you next time on the Working Genius podcast. God bless.